Here it is.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Morhonda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up. Got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. Tuesday, December 5th. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We appreciate you being along. Mike DeCourcy joining us today. Chronic Hoosier. Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times. Plenty to get to, of course. Still talking about the college football playoffs. And I just noticed, the portal is a very, very fun thing to watch right now. And there is a player from Alabama, not just any player. He's a quarterback. Redshirt sophomore quarterback Tyler Buckner has entered the transfer portal as a lacrosse player. That's right. He transferred to Alabama last season from Notre Dame, where he played in only 3 games in 2022. Played lacrosse at the Bishop School, La Jolla, California, according to his Alabama bio. He was considered one of the top lacrosse recruits in the country while in high school. He hasn't ruled out a return to football, but a source close to Buckner told Pete Thamel that Buckner is expected to explore his lacrosse options this spring. I know lacrosse is a big thing in the East, but I would think that that's a wild one. So yeah, there's that. How are you? Welcome aboard. Of course, I said Kyle McCord in the transfer portal from Ohio State. How does that work? You're this close to going to the college football playoffs, and the next thing you know, your quarterback is gone. Starting quarterback. Now, that's one you don't usually see. One from a high-end program like that. As a matter of fact, that may be the highest level program at the moment that I can recall a starting quarterback transferring from. He was in his 3rd year with the Buckeyes, won the starting job early in the season. So he waited 2 years behind C.J. Stroud. We mentioned this yesterday, but I still can't get over it. He had 3,170 yards with 24 touchdown passes this year. That's pretty good. So it's kind of crazy. It's a wild and wacky world. Of course, Indiana's new coach is filling his coaching order out. He's going to be bringing a lot of guys from James Madison with him, but these are just not low-level guys. They've done a hell of a job with taking 150-level recruits and turning them into top level. So we'll look forward to seeing him get his staff filled out, but some guys are definitely coming. Mike Shanahan, and it's not that Mike Shanahan. He was the OC and wide receivers coach for the last 2 years of James Madison. Before that, he handled recruiting coordinator and the wide receivers coach. He's been a wide receivers coach since 2016 at different stops with Cignetti. So there were only 2 programs in the country with 2 1,000-yard wide receivers in 23. LSU and James Madison. So that should make IU football fans happy. Shanahan's only 33 years old, but 3 years of coordinator experience already. They've done a great job developing their passing attack. Why do you think they're so successful? But looking forward to that. Let's see. Tino Sunseri, the quarterback's coach. He'll be coming along. Tight ends coach. Special teams coordinator, as Indiana could definitely use some special teams change. I'm sorry to say the special teams were just abysmal for Indiana. Pat Kuntz, the defensive line coach. He was a GA at Indiana from 2016 to 2018. He spent time in Bloomington already, so he's just coming home. Former Roncalli High School star and Notre Dame nose tackle and Indianapolis Colt. So he's got plenty of hometown. And you talk about a guy that could go recruit the state of Indiana. There you are. Among others that are coming. Now, I noticed the Derek Owens, the strength and conditioning coordinator. And I know that Indiana was paying their strength and conditioning coordinator a lot of money. So I assume that he's going to be out of a job. The assistant salary pool, of course, I expect that to rise for Indiana. Kurt Cignetti's contract details. Indiana has never had a reputation, of course, for paying a lot of money for them. But Scott Dolson has stated and shown that he is intent on making the Indiana football program relevant. One of the quotes he answered to it was after the other day after the presser, there was kind of an impromptu meeting around Scott. A group of us were just standing around talking to him and asking him questions, and he was kind enough to answer. But one of the things he said is, I don't want to be in those AD meetings, the Big Ten AD meetings, and be an afterthought. And he's serious about that. So Indiana has we'll see how much more money they put towards assistants. How's everybody doing today? We appreciate you jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline early and often. Fred, Tanis. Dustin DePirick interviews afterwards. We had Miles and Tyrese and Stitches laughing about their newfound defense. I did not see that, but I have no doubts about Dustin getting people cracked up. We'll have to wait till tomorrow when John's back with us to pull that back up. Scott, MD, down in Owensboro. Appreciate you. Forrest. Donald, back on from Georgia. Gritty. Hoosiers are on Peacock tonight. She says her parents are not happy. They don't fancy all that streaming stuff. Well, welcome to the world, unfortunately. You know what? I don't have Peacock, and maybe I'm going to have to get it. I've got about every damn thing else. ESPN Plus and this Plus and yada, yada. Tannis said he had to laugh hearing the national pundits mocking Indy fans as bumping and then hearing someone from Pittsburgh use the hillbilly term yins. Well, Yinzers. Yinzers, man. They're Yinzers. That came straight from Dustin DePirick yesterday. He's a Yinzer. I didn't really know what a Yinzer was. I'll be honest with you. I was that many years old when I found out what a Yinzer was. So is that a hillbilly term? Fozan is on from Amman, Jordan. How you doing, sir? Eric, Larry, Robert says, due to a dispute with the credit card company, the card that he pays for his television access was frozen over Black Friday. He missed out on the $1.99 deal. You know what? As did I. That would have been a good one to have. Yeah, I didn't get that either. I was busy. Hannah says, good thing it's a different Mike Shanahan. Screwed over his team like a Kardashian. Derek asking, do you think he convinced McCulley to come back? Yeah, I do. He's going to have a better offense to play in. But it depends. I mean, Donovan McCulley has shown he's a top quality wide receiver. He may get an offer that he can't refuse. But yes, I think that he can. If Donovan McCulley likes being at Indiana, there's no reason in the world why I don't think that he can't. I will say this. It's going to take the players a minute to get used to Cignetti. He is very different from what they have been used to. He can be a little brash, which I'm not complaining about. I think Indiana needs a little brash, to be honest with you. But he's not it's not all peaches and cream and rainbows and unicorns. And I'm not discounting or knocking anything before. It was just different. But it ain't that anymore. It is matter of fact business, no BS, confidence, a little cockiness, and it's probably going to catch some of the current team members a little off guard. Some are going to like it. Some are going to not like it. Some are going to maybe take it the wrong way. So I think that's going to go a long way into who comes back, who doesn't come back. But I think that he will. Rob, how are you, sir? Bill? I expect that. What time is? Oh, this is the late night game, right? A 9 o'clock game. We generally don't do post game shows on 9 o'clock games. There's no point, but I'll ask. But I'm not sure about that one. Andrew, how are you, sir? Tony, appreciate you. Win or loss at Michigan. Ooh, that's a good one to talk about. Kevin, how are you, sir? Robert, Tony, Tannis, Kevin, man, we got them all on. We've got to take a break. We'll be back with Mike DeCourcy and much more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Yeah, I have a dress rehearsal tonight, so I'm gonna miss the game. And something I'm trying to figure out is, can you rewatch? Can I like record games on Peacock? Which I don't think I can. So it's like, fuck you. Or sorry for the language. But it's annoying. Yeah, sorry. But that's annoying. They're gonna make you pay for it. You can't record it.
Well, you know what? Are there any Peacock specials? Peacock. P-A-C-O-K.
Man, when you said that $1.99, I was mad. I missed that.
Well,
I knew I was going to sign up. There is a student offer, though, and I have a student email. So. Oh, thank you, Derek, for letting me know that.
What did he
Derek
say?
He said you can go back and watch games on Peacock. $19.99 for what, John? For a year? Let me go live here.
Wait a minute. Where's Mike?
I don't know. John sent the email this morning. Let me see. Mike's on it.
Well, has it been 3 minutes since we broke?
We broke. I told you to break at 5:48. You might have done it a few seconds after, but according to my watch, it's been about 3 minutes.
How much is it a year? I mean,
a year, $19.99. It's not terrible. Oh, that was a Black Friday deal.
Can't you just cancel it?
Yeah, it's what I do with YouTube TV during basketball season.
Man, I don't ever cancel YouTube TV.
Yeah, I don't know where Mike is, but it is time for us to go live. Oh, there he is. I'll put him on here and cue you guys in.
Mike has Peacock, I'm sure.
Yes, I do.
I don't yet.
I have all the streaming services except Disney. Is that the only one? I think that's about it. I mean, because almost all of them have soccer on them. So, Peacock has Premier League, and Paramount has Champions League. They get you.
All right, guys. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's December 5th, and now we're joined by the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Good day, Mike. How are you, sir?
I am well. Look at us wearing our company gear today.
I know. I just got those in, so thought I'd sport that baby. Pete did a great job with those. And, of course, the Sporting News. Make sure you're following Mike there to get all of your content for a myriad of sports, no matter what it is. We were just talking about the Peacock Network. People always complain every time that there's, whether it's Big Ten Plus or ESPN Plus, people like to complain about that. And where do you think this money for these schools are coming from, people? That's exactly where this money comes from. So, but you know what? Just think about if you were going to a live game, how much that would cost you, fuel and the money you're going to spend on concessions and you're not going to have as good a seat, and you can't watch replays. So, I'm like going, it's just not that bad to me to pay for a service that gets what I want. But I sure do wish I would have hit the. Apparently, there was a pretty nice Black Friday special for Peacock that I missed out on. $19.99 for the year or something, I think. But oh well. How's Mike DeCourcy doing?
I'm doing well. Better than the Florida State Seminoles for sure.
Ooh, wow, yeah.
But I will say I have Peacock. I have, like we were saying off the air, I have a majority of the streaming services because a lot of them rightly assessed that soccer fans will pay for content, but it's not a very expensive service if you get the ad supported version. I don't know what the non-ad service costs, but the ad supported version doesn't have a ton of commercials, a minute break here and there during programs. And obviously if you're watching sports, that's really not much of a burden because it's breaking for regular television anyway. Yep. So I've enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I've seen on Peacock. So if you get Peacock, because you want to watch Big Ten basketball, you get to see my buddies Joel Cornette and Josh Pastner as analysts there, which is nice. They're both terrific guys, and great to see them in the game. And be sure to watch Poker Face because it's a terrific show. That's when I think about what I've watched on Peacock that I've really enjoyed. That's a 10-episode program they did. I hope they're going to do more seasons. It's really good.
I'm slow, but I'm on Netflix. I'm just now watching Longmire, which I discovered went off the air in like 2018 or something. I'm like, really? I'm like, wow. How did I miss out on this? So just, yeah, I've been busy. I was busy, Mike. I've been busy.
I get it.
Speaking of busy, Indiana's been busy with a new football coach, Curt Cignetti, who has also been busy in getting to work and filling out his staff. I'm sure recruiting his current team to see which ones he wants to keep, because before you joined us, I talked about the fact that some of these players are going to stay, some of them are not going to stay. And part of it, his persona is very different from what they have dealt with over the last 7 years with Tom Allen. Curt Cignetti is a no BS kind of guy. He may come across a little cocky. He's definitely got some confidence, but I think Indiana needs that a little bit. And we'll see, but it's definitely a whole new era for Indiana football. There's a different sheriff in town now, and he's bringing most of his assistants with him, some of which have already had time in Indiana.
Yeah, Curt is a Pittsburgh native like me.
I forgot to mention that Yinzer. He's a Yinzer like you. Yeah. I would just learn, and we'll get back to this, but I just learned what a Yinzer was from Dustin DePirick yesterday.
Yes, Dustin is one of us, definitely. Curt, I'm not sure where Curt grew up because his father moved around a little bit. His father, Frank, was head coach at West Virginia for a little while. Wasn't a smash, but then went to a Division II university in Western Pennsylvania called Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Eventually, because I hadn't thought about that, but he and his father now will have both coached at Indiana University. His father coached at what's now known as IUP division. They've had a very successful Division II basketball program, a national power in that sport, and his father was a legend at IUP. They did fantastic things, and Curt has had great success at James Madison. He's done a wonderful job there, especially handling the transition from FCS to FBS as well as he did.
Curt Cignetti was the head coach at IUP as well.
He was, yes. He succeeded his father. That's where he got his start. I believe he was the direct successor to his father. I may be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. And he's proven to be a terrific coach at both. Well, really, he's coached at 3 levels now. In reality, in the step to Indiana, it's a 4th level, because although the letters say Division II is 1 and FCS is another and FBS is a 3rd, let's be honest. I mean, James Madison is not IUP. That's why Kurt's taking this job, because they're not the same. In the Florida State debate, people are starting to say, well, why doesn't Liberty count? Well, I mean, I want the best of the G5 to get into the playoff. And this year that won't be true. Next year it will. And I certainly think Liberty deserves that shot. But when we're having this conversation about it as a 14 playoff, it's not the same. So, I mean, the reality is that the Sun Belt and Conference USA are not, and the WAC or whatever are not the same leagues as what we see in the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC. It's just not the same. So he's taking this step up because not only it means more money, but it means a greater challenge. And as we know, Indiana football is a significant challenge within that greater challenge.
Speaking of Peacock, Derek says it's only $5.99 a month and you can cancel anytime. So people, you got to shell out $15 to watch some basketball, or however long the games are that Indiana's on. Were they on like 5 times? So
yeah, the people who I feel worst for in this are those who don't have smart TVs. I mean, then they're stuck either watching on their iPad or their phone or whatever. Most
TVs have an input for a dongle, though, right?
Yeah, you can do that. But I have one of the first edition, and I still use it in my workout room, plasma TVs from 2005. It's held up beautifully since 2005. It's kind of like a heirloom to me, because I was like on the cutting edge of high def, because I bought that back in the day. So it does not have the ability.
I'm right there with you, dude. And this damn thing is heavy as a boulder. I mean, and it's thin screen. It's at least this thick, which that is not a thin screen. And I'm like, God dang, this thing weighs like 60 pounds, man.
Yep. I watched the 2005 Super Bowl on that when the Steelers beat Seattle, and I watched the 2006 World Cup because I was there at the beginning, man. But for the most part, people have the ability to put a Fire Stick in their TV. That's only like if you don't have a smart TV and you have the receptor, you can put a Fire Stick in there. I think those are only $25. Yeah, it's an expense, but it's not an egregious expense. And like I said, you do get, in addition to the new Big Ten programming, the ability to watch the Premier League, some really good programs. And I will confess, this is a public confession, Jim. During the pandemic, my wife and I started watching the soap opera Days of Our Lives, and we're still watching it now. So and you can only watch Days.
That show is older than you and I combined.
I know. You can only watch Days if you have Peacock. So there you go. You get that thrown into the mix along with Big Ten basketball.
Let's see. What was I going to go? Oh, okay. We've got Heisman finalists and college football finalists to talk about. And first of all, the college football championship. Did Florida State get screwed, or did they get? I know that they were deserving, but are they one of the 4 best teams in the country?
Here's the thing, Jim. Here's the thing. The use of the phrase "4 best" has been and always was a hustle. It's a hustle, because when you say that, you can define best however you wish. You can move it around to put in whoever you want to put in.
Yep.
That's the reality of it. There's only accomplished. There's no such thing as best. You can call yourself the best once you've won the championship, but even then, the best team, if there is such a thing, may have lost, like in the NCAA tournament. last year. What if Purdue was the best team? I mean, they didn't win it, and maybe it's a hard thing to make an argument for, but maybe they were. We don't know. They just had a terrible day and lost and didn't go far or whatever. And UConn won the championship. Were they the best team? They lost, 9 games, 8 games, 7, whatever in January, February. They weren't the best team in January and February. They were the best team in March, but they were the champions because they were asked to do a specific thing, and they did it, and they get a trophy for that. Florida State entered the year believing, well, if we win all our games, we have to be a playoff team. They did not have that in writing, so to speak.
Never happened, but it's never not happened before.
Never happened. But I saw it coming. As soon as Jordan Travis got hurt and they demoted them a spot or two, I can't remember how many, I wrote a column that said, look, here's what's going to happen. So don't be surprised when it does, because this committee can't be trusted. And I got a lot of kickback, a lot of pushback on that column from people saying, oh, you're just being alarmist. That's not going to happen. They would never do that to a P5 undefeated. And I said, okay, let's see what happens. And then when Alabama won the Georgia game, and I was in the press box at the Big Ten final between Michigan, the Big Ten championship game between Michigan and Iowa, and I was having a conversation with my good friend Malcolm Moran, the professor at IUPUI sports journalism program. When I was talking to him, he said he thought they might have 2 SEC teams in there, and I'm like, but there shouldn't be any. And that was when I decided to write the column that I did, because I could tell that what was coming around the bend in that train was exactly what I had predicted it to be. And the victim of that would be Florida State. Florida State looked bad on Saturday night. Well, they didn't look bad when the other team had the football. Why is it we only judge the beauty of a team based on how many points they score and not how many points or yards they don't allow? You got 3 separate entities on a football team: special teams, offense, defense. Special teams are probably about 10% of the game. The other 45 are split between offense and defense, but we only judge you as great or best or whatever if you have a productive offense. That's ridiculous. Florida State on Saturday night was not going to be the same team as it would be on January 1, because their second quarterback, had a concussion, I guess it was, a head injury of some sort.
He's going to be back.
And he'll be back. It's what they did. I really believe that what the committee did, that they shouldn't been able to look in the mirror on Monday morning. It was that disgraceful.
It's SEC bias. There's no doubt that there's SEC bias.
No, they were never going to have that was one of the lines that I used in my column on Saturday night. I said, is it even legal to have a college football playoff tournament without the SEC? I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know for sure. And it turns out the answer was no, it's not.
Well, at least next year we won't have to worry about, to a degree, with teams like that getting in. So it's the last year that we have to worry about the 4 it being decided in that manner. But there'll be arguments next year, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, too, but first of all, let me say this. Every team next year, as the season begins in the what will now be the Power 4, every team will know if we win our championship, we're in. Every team will know that. If you don't win your championship, then you are putting your fate up for grabs. And if you don't get in, it's your fault. You didn't win your championship. Nothing prevented you from winning your championship except your own ability and the ability of your opponents. But you couldn't overcome the opponents, so it's on you. Right now, Florida State can't say that. Florida State did everything that was asked of them. Won every game they played, won the ACC championship, and it didn't matter. And that will not be the case in the future. The only team that may have an argument, we may get, let's say, an undefeated, who's left in the American? An undefeated Memphis in the American, and then an undefeated James Madison in the Sun Belt. And then okay, now what do we got? If James Madison is even in the Sun Belt, I can't remember which of those doggone leagues.
They still are in the Sun Belt. Yes.
Okay. All right. So we might, and then what do? Okay. So now we have a little problem, and maybe they find room for both of them. Probably they don't. But then you have a little bit of an argument. But other than that, you're not going to have, you're going to have the 13th best team mad at the 12th best team. What do I care? The 13th best team, again, had its chance to win a championship and did not do that. Just as like at the end of the NCAA tournament selections, 99, well, maybe not 99, 9 out of 10, it's the committee just picks a different team that's barely qualified than another team that's barely qualified that maybe people who do what I do for Fox, the bracket projections, prefer the other team. Last 2 years, the bracket matrix vastly preferred the last team on the outline, the first team on the outline over the last team on the inline. But it's not like the only people that lost sleep were the fans of those teams. Ball went in the air on Tuesday night or Thursday morning, whichever you prefer to believe is the start of the NCAA tournament. And everything was fine because everybody who earned their way in or had met the qualification was in. And it was just down to a matter of taste for the last few entrants.
We've got to take a break. When we come back, Indiana takes on Michigan tonight. Dylan Harper has a decision looming and Heisman Trophy race. One of the only things that I could outwardly absolutely disagree with Mike on, we'll talk about when we come back. Indiana Sports Beat back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
No commercials today, Mike. We got RC, the producer. He doesn't do the commercials. Yenza. Yeah. Again, Dustin tried to explain it to me. What is a Yenza?
Okay.
Because I don't hear a weird accent from Pittsburgh people.
Oh, wow. That's only,
but I haven't
worked at it.
I haven't been to Pittsburgh. I mean, I haven't spent time in Pittsburgh, really.
Well, I could send you a recording, probably off of YouTube, of what a Yinzer sounds like. But the word Yins is like the Southern y'all.
Right. That's what he said.
So, and I grew up around people who said it. I never used it, but I grew up around people who said that often. And
Yin's going to the game today. Like Yin's going to the game today.
The classic Pittsburgh expression is Yin's guy's gone down John Eagle. That's now what did I just say?
This is like, say it again.
Yin's guy's gone down John Eagle.
You guys are going down to something. I don't know.
Giant Eagle is a supermarket chain that is based. I think they're based in the Market District over in Carmel. The Get Go that you see, you'll see a Get Go gas station. That's all Giant Eagle. But that's how they say Giant Eagle is Giant Eagle. And down it is pronounced as Dan.
That's that's a far eastern country slang. It sounds like New York, Boston, all that stuff combined into a country.
It's very, as is the case in Philadelphia, Boston, New York. It's very distinctive to that region. You've heard Philly guys, I'm sure, with their accent. They're very distinctive, and it is, and my wife will tease me when it slips into the at will slip in every now and then into my diction, and she gets on me really hard when it happens.
Oh, I had to work very hard when I used to be a TV sports anchor. When I first got out of school, I had to work hard at. I remember a roommate here at IU was from Pittsburgh, and he would make fun of me because I would say, I said, dang, it's cold outside, man. He said, code? What's the code? What's the code? I'm sorry, cold.
So in your younger days, you covered the the Indianapolis Colts. Is that correct?
No, I would have said Colts. Boy, see, now it's hard to rephrase it. I refuse to say Louisville, even though I was actually born in Louisville.
You say Louisville?
I do. I refuse.
I say Louisville because it's how they pronounce it. It's their town.
I know.
Louisville, so that's what I call it.
But that's because they take pride in not being able to enunciate their words. And I'm like, I refuse to take part in that.
We gotta go live, guys.
I grew up in Southern Indiana. Went to IU. I refuse to take part in that celebration of lack of enunciation.
All right, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday, December 5. Man, we're getting closer to Christmas. And speaking of a present, we've got one Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us, talking football, basketball, all kinds of things going on right now. And the Heisman finalists were announced, Mike. No shock there, of course. Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, and your guy Marvin Harrison Jr. And a while back, you were really on Marvin Harrison, and still are. He's a great player, no doubt. But man, and as much as I want it to be Michael Penix, just because having covered him, it would be so cool to see it. Jaden Daniels is just done things that I'm like, damn. You look at his numbers and they're just crazy, off the chart. He did stuff Lamar Jackson never did. His numbers are just phenomenal. And I don't see how Jaden Daniels loses this, even though he lost 3 games, which that should have nothing to do with the Heisman Trophy race. It does. That drives me nuts because I'm like, a defense on a team doesn't have a damn thing to do with what the player does. But Michael Penix and Bo Nix, had he not lost to Michael Penix that second game, I think Bo Nix finished second at the very worst, and a tight race with Jaden Daniels. But I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, and then Marvin Harrison.
Well, I'll say that if you're going to pick it on the best player, then it should be Marvin Harrison. Look at
how's he better than Jaden Daniels?
Because he's a better player. I mean, he's better at his position than Jaden Daniels is. And ultimately, I can understand if you say, look, at the end, it wasn't his fault necessarily, but he also didn't change the game against Michigan, so he doesn't get to go. I can see that. Or he doesn't get the trophy. He gets to go. He'll go to New York, but I can see that. But I can't see. Look at the stats. No, I'm not buying that on Jaden Daniels. The best player is Marvin Harrison, but if you want to pick the most accomplished player, then it's got to be Michael, because Michael's numbers are terrific too. And Michael won all their games, and he was a huge factor in them winning all those games, including going 2-0 against one of the other Heisman finalists, who was getting all the buzz. And I mean, I'm not saying Bo Nix isn't the better pro prospect. I didn't see it jump off the page. And usually when somebody's a great prospect, it kind of does. I didn't see it jump off the page, so to speak, or jump off the screen on Friday night. But Michael was the better quarterback by far on Friday night. I mean, it wasn't even close. Nix,
I think he's the only quarterback that's thrown for 4,000 yards this year as well.
So, if you're taking the best player, in terms of what they showed this year, then it's got to be Harrison. But if you're taking the one who accomplished the most, statistically, Michael, it's just a different package of statistics than what's happening at LSU. I would if I were voting, and I don't have a vote any longer. I haven't had one in 20 years. When when I left, actually 25 years when I left Memphis. That was the last time I was a voter. So I don't have a vote, but if I did, I would be deciding between Michael Penix and Marvin Harrison, and Jaden Daniels would get on their third.
Well, we'll certainly find out. Michael Penix getting to play for a college football championship, which is very, very cool. Him and Kalen DeBoer, of course, both having been here at Indiana not long ago and taking that program up. Winning the last Pac-12 championship. Well, the last Pac-12 championship as we know it.
Yes, the last real one. If I were the Mountain West and the two teams left in the Pac-12, I would rebrand the Mountain West as the Pac-12. I love the Mountain West name, and it is a good brand, but it's not the Pac-12. I mean, the Pac-12 is, has 70 years of history or whatever. I would definitely go in that direction. It's not quite 70 years because they were the Pacific Coast Conference or whatever they were before they switched it. But basically most of my lifetime there's been a Pac-8 or a Pac-10 or a Pac-12, and the Mountain West has only been around for 20 years or so. So I would, if I were them, that's what I would do. But we'll see what happens in the future. But I was really impressed. I've always been impressed with Michael as a quarterback, but I thought that he showed great ability and great heart. And he showed he was a champion on Friday night.
Absolutely. I mean, that was they were a 9-point underdog.
That's what I
like. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's what I keep saying about the Florida State thing. When people say, well, Alabama would be a favorite over Florida State, so that's why they deserve to be in. And I'm like, okay, Oregon was a 9.5 point favorite over Washington on Friday night. How'd that go? You can't base it on that.
Speaking of which, Indiana is an underdog tonight as they travel to Ann Arbor. I think it's like a 4.5 point underdog. So a couple points for the home court. But
last I saw
Michigan's been playing
7.5 points. Just wanted to
really, holy moly, gone up a little bit. Michigan's been playing well though, even with Juwan Howard. He's back, but he's not really back. Although he did get tossed, I heard in his first game back. Did he get tossed from his seated position? Because I don't think he's gotten out of the chair much. But Michigan has been a little better than I thought that they were going to be.
Well, they have lost 4 of their last 5 games, though.
Yes, I see that now. Going 4-4.
4 of those, all 4 of those games, they played a very challenging schedule. There aren't very many teams out there that have played 5 high major games out of their first 7 games. So some of that is the challenge of the schedule. Actually, they played 5 out of 8. Excuse me. They played St. John's, who they beat badly. That was the game that really woke everybody up and said, boy, Michigan might really be something. And then they went and they lost a tough one to Memphis and got beaten pretty soundly by Texas Tech. And then they lost a tough one over the weekend to Oregon, the one that really could have changed their early season. I don't know what the word is. The early season evaluation of them is harsh now because they're sitting at 4-4. But again, it's been a really challenging schedule. So Indiana coming in there, that's an opportunity for them. Not to get well. Get well opportunity is when you play a poor team, but it's an opportunity for them to win a game that would really reset them as a team because they would have played a really difficult schedule. They'd have now 3 high major wins, and they would have 2 over likely NCAA tournament contenders. So that's a really big game for Michigan. If Michigan loses this one at home, it's going to be really tough for them. And for the Hoosiers, it's a chance to affirm the progress that they've made. They've done really well over the last two weeks or so. They've played much better basketball. We've seen Mackenzie Mbako playing better. Khalil Ware continues to be one of the best players in the league. They still aren't shooting the ball great, but they are playing really effective defense, and they are starting to embrace their roles and starting to understand their roles. because everybody there, think about it, except Xavier Johnson, everybody there is playing a slightly different role than they ever played before. And, you know, of course, in Xavier's case, he's been banged up, so he hasn't played as much as IU fans would like to see.
And Indiana playing without Xavier Johnson in their last game. I expect that might be the case in this one as well, from just the way things looked. But they were able to get by. Trey Galloway did enough. He had a nice stat line of effectiveness, not as far as outside shooting, but Indiana was doing just enough there. They actually, for the first time, won the 3-point shooting battle in the first and second half against Maryland. That's because they only allowed one shot each to go down for the Terps. But that's still a step up for Indiana. They were 3 of 6 at one time, which is the best that they have been all season. But more importantly, not getting killed behind the perimeter, which is something that's been a penchant for them this season. But their offense seems to be smoothing out, I guess you'd say. Malik Renew and Kalel Ware are playing marvelously together. Mackenzie Mbako's game is starting to get better. Looks like he's just getting more comfortable, and Indiana is just lacking at the guard spot from being a really, really good team, I think.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think yes. I think that they're lacking Xavier because Cups has been a fine backup and a good presence. He hasn't hurt them in terms of turning over the ball. He's done a reasonably good job on defense. It's just that with him coming off the bench and being sort of a spark plug, I think he can play more comfortably. It's a lot to ask for him to start at this stage at the point guard spot. And if you have Xavier Johnson, you have a veteran guy who can defend the position at an elite level, who can initiate offense, who can make a deep shot. That's a lot to take out of a position where you're not especially deep. And so I think that I think they have a chance to be better than people expected. But health will be a factor in that, as it is for every team. They just happen to be one that's learning that lesson early.
Absolutely. So tonight they also have a chance to go 2-0 in the Big Ten, Mike, which is huge any time, because they have to go back to non-conference play for a bit, starting this weekend as they go to Atlanta to take on an Auburn team. And then the following weekend, you've got a top, well, are they number one yet? No, number two, Kansas. Number 2, Kansas. Arizona, I could not believe that they're number 1 for the first time since 2014. I was like, wow, really? But yeah. But anyway, Kansas, a solid number 2. And I think that those teams are just going to kind of rotate there at the top this year. I'm surprised UConn is not higher than they are. They've just been hanging around that number 5 spot. They could be the best team in the country.
Yeah, first of all, UConn hasn't been whole yet. I think Stephon Castle played a game or two, maybe. Stephon Castle is a top 10 NBA draft pick prospect, elite athlete, 6'7", great passer, really dynamic. So he's barely played to this point. Didn't play in the Kansas game. Hasn't really gotten on the court against many of their tougher opponents. He's supposed to play in their next game. That's the buzz. So we'll see if that happens and how long it takes him to get assimilated. Again, he plays that position depending on what they do with him. His natural position might be point guard. If you don't play him at point guard, you might play him at small forward. And again, that's a tough position to make a immediate adjustment to the college level. We've seen it with Mackenzie at IU. It takes a little while for a high school 3-man to become a college 3-man. It's very rare that it's instantaneous. So it may take Stephon Castle a little while before he's comfortable. The good thing for him is that his first skill is passing rather than scoring. and you can always make an impact as a passer no matter where you're playing.
Michigan, they don't really have anybody that can contain Khalil Ware, especially the way he's been playing of late. I don't think he is getting more and more confident with each and every game that he plays, and he is going to be, Indiana fans worried about losing Trace Jackson Davis, and I'm not saying he's Trace Jackson Davis. He's a little bit different because he can shoot the three. He's a weapon. And he's getting very much more confident, even though he doesn't have the size of someone, say, like Trace or Zach Edey. He's using his athletic ability in a much better way than I think some people may have expected. And his motor has not been a problem.
Now, I think that Michigan does have a couple of guys they can try against him. Olivier Kamwa is a terrific defender who learned under Rick Barnes for several years. And so you don't come out of the Tennessee program not knowing how to guard. Whether he can chase Khalil away from the basket, that'll be a challenge for him. And then Terrace Reed's a good big guy. So if we're talking about in the area of the basket, Reed is a very capable shot blocker. Averaging about 1.5 in 22 minutes a game. It's a pretty good number there. So they have options to defend Khalil. I'm not sure that either of them is designed perfectly. It's one might be better, but both of them might be better at defending the lane than they are the perimeter. And of course, Khalil can take it outside. But I think they have options. It'll be an interesting challenge, I think, for Khalil. And for the guys trying to guard him.
Mike, what's up next for you?
Wow, I'm working on some different things about the college, our Division I college football coach of the year. Obviously, it's obviously Division I. I'm working on that. An article about that. I'm working on another about the Sporting News Athletes of the Year. Was Lionel Messi? It's not Lionel Messi this year, so. But it's an interesting choice, and I'm just digging into working on the articles for that. That'll come out. The football coach of the year will be out early next week, I believe, and the athletes of the year will be out the week after. So the 18th is when to look for our athlete of the year story.
I hope I'm in it. Hey, look forward. Make sure you look forward to that. Make sure you're giving Mike a follow at the Sporting News and also catch him on his broadcast with BTN. Mike, thank you a lot. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks, Jim.
You betcha. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We've got much more coming up. Back with it and more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I must go down to the hall and get more coffee.
All right. You settle back in and ready?
Man, you don't give a guy a break, do you? Slave driver.
Got to keep it between the white lines.
Slave drivers. We're open this period, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Chronic and then Mike.
All right. Well, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's December 5. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you as always, no matter how you're listening, whether you're on radio, our good friends down on the river, 97.7 ESPN, the Ref, always the right call in Evansville. Also up in the region on the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, WJOB, and of course, Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Make sure you keep it tuned there for Caleb and Kenny in the morning and the Sports Rush following Indiana Sports Beat Radio each day. Let's see. We have our winners for the college pick'em. Now, if you want to do the ESPN Capital One Bowl Mania, we have a group for that, and it is under Indiana Sports Beat Radio, just like the opening was, and the password is simply B-Town. It's a standard pick, no spreads, which that makes it pretty daggone easy. But our winners, we had our winners for the year. Let's see. Bill Evans, we still need an address. Let's see. I think I need an address for him to send some stuff out to. I'll have to get with Pete on all this, but our top 3 will get your prizes sent out. In addition to Gary, we got to get his sent out from the NCAA yet. So looking forward to that. College football playoffs. Yeah, I think Florida State got screwed. I really do. You just doesn't really matter. I mean, there's no point. There's no point in discussing it because it doesn't matter. It's done. They're going to do what they're going to do. But that shows you that's just like a few years ago when Indiana probably should have won the Big Ten East. Were they the best team? Barely not, because they barely lost at Ohio State. Because of a pick six and a couple of fumbles, they would have beaten Ohio State. My God, can you imagine that? That would have been the most shocking thing in the history of college football, maybe. Pete's got everyone's addresses, so there we go. We've got all that. That's great. Actually, I'm wearing, as you can see, these will be for sale, these Indiana Sports Beat t-shirts. Hats, I'm not wearing a hat. There's a white hat as well. So $20, I think Pete said. That includes shipping. So we'll get those out to anyone that wants them. We'll have you reach out to Pete. Bill says he's emailed his info in. Good, we've got everything. Pete says he's got all the addresses. He sent standard because there are over 30 picks and bowls. Figure that should be a challenge in and of itself. Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. And speaking of which, I bet I could pull that up right now. And see, where's the is it under bowl? Capital One Bowl Mania? There we go. There we go. I can make a lot of my picks right now. But yeah, but see, some of these are going to be tough. You're going to have to do some studying. Ohio and Georgia Southern, Florida A&M and at Howard, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns taking on Jacksonville. Then you got App State, Miami of Ohio, Fresno State, New Mexico State, Boise State against UCLA, Texas Tech, Cal. Oh, wait a minute. I've skipped the names of these bowl games and how they have changed. So we've got the Myrtle Beach Bowl. This is me shaking my head if you're listening on radio. That's the Ohio and Georgia Southern game. Then the Cricket Celebration Bowl. You celebrate. Do they use the cricket sounds every time they get a first down? That's for Florida A&M Rattlers against the Howard Bison. Well, that'd be something. The R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. All right, that's been around for a minute now. That's the Raging Cajuns from Louisiana against Jacksonville State. Then the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. Oh my God. This just reading these bowl names is a comedy routine in and of itself. Let's see here. That Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl? What the hell is that? I know it's avocados from Mexico. What's a Cure Bowl? Is that two different things? Isleta, New Mexico Bowl. Is Isleta a town in New Mexico? The Starco Brands LA Bowl. What the hell are Starco Brands? See, when you don't know stuff, what it is, what is the point of putting it on this name, on a bowl game? The Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Now, I love the fact that they left the name Independence Bowl on there. Thank you. And I believe that every single one of these bowl games should have been forced to do that. Whatever bowl game it was before, leave that name in there. I hate when they take that out because, for one thing, I don't know what the hell that they're talking about. The famous Toastery Bowl. Before I get too far, the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl is Texas Tech and Cal. Couple of 6-6 foes there. Boy, that'll be a mind bender. Then we have the famous Toastery Bowl. What the hell? What's yeah, skip. Here. How about Scooter's Coffee Frisco Bowl? Scooter's Coffee. Now, is Scooter's a national brand? That's between the thundering herd of We Are Marshall and UTSA. Beep, beep. The Roadrunners. Then the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. That's just a straight up, you got damage to your roof? Give us a call, I think. Yeah. The Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Now, isn't Gasparilla something different than, aren't these two different things now? Union Home Mortgage, of course, but then the Gasparilla. Someone's got to help me out here. Northern Illinois and Arkansas State play in the Camellia Bowl. Then there's the 76 Birmingham Bowl, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, 68 Ventures Bowl. Well, that was one short of being something, huh? The SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl, Easy Post Hawaii Bowl, the Quick Lane Bowl, Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com, Duke's Mayo Bowl. Now that should be played in a bowl of mayonnaise. The DirecTV Holiday Bowl. Thank you for leaving Holiday Bowl on there. The Tax Act Texas Bowl. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Here we go. How about the Pop-Tarts Bowl? That's a thing. The Valero Alamo Bowl. Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Thank you for leaving Gator Bowl. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Thank you for leaving Sun Bowl. AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Again, thank you. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Thank you again. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. Capital One Orange Bowl. Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. The ReliaQuest Bowl. The Verbo Fiesta Bowl, Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, and then the college football semi-playoffs. And Howie says he had a Gasparilla once, was down for a week. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Tim. There's just no way you can that I can compare what Marvin Harrison has done to, say, any of those three guys that I mentioned. I mean, first of all, like I said, I'd love for Michael Penix to win the Heisman. It's just it's next to impossible to not go with Jaden Daniels. He has had a phenomenal year, but hey, hopefully Michael picks up a bunch of more votes, and there's nothing I'd love to see more. We've got to take a break. More coming up, including Chronic Hoosier. We're back with that and much more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Chronic.
What up?
How's it going?
It's going, man. How are you today, Jim?
Oh, you know, brother, this living the dream, like you would always say.
Same. I am still wrapping my mind around that Derek Queen tweet this morning.
Well, I'm looking. What I'm trying to look that up right now.
I texted it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know where the hell it went. There we go.
So Trilly Donovan posted a Dairy Queen gif in IU colors. Real cryptic. Dairy Queen's only market that they're in is ours. And within 15 minutes, one of the Maryland insiders posts a crystal ball to IU.
There you go.
Be awesome.
Which I wasn't expecting because I was literally scrolling for news on Ron Harper.
Yeah, which comes, 2 days from now?
Tomorrow.
Or not Ron Dillon. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow. He's supposed to announce tomorrow. But that news certainly doesn't make it any worse from a prognostication standpoint. That momentum.
Sure.
Did you say Dairy Queen is the only market that Bloomington?
Dairy Queen only operates. Yeah, they only operate in the Indiana market of the schools he's considering, I was told.
Interesting.
Really got cryptic with that one, man. That was Eddie.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you credit for that. I'm going to post that and give you credit. I remember when it went from Burger Queen. I remember when it was Burger Queen.
Burger Chef, baby. Big on the Burger Chef in this household.
But was it Burger Chef before Burger Queen?
We had Burger Chef.
Oh.
We go live, gentlemen, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, December 5, and happy to have you along with us. Chronic Hoosier joins us now, and very, very timely as we've been watching the blogosphere, whatever you want to call it, that area that lives out there in space where all the information floats around, and a cryptic tweet that was sent out by someone, Trilly Donovan, who is pretty good when he's it kind of aggravates people like me that are closer to the program, but when those guys are always able to find stuff out, but and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in a funny kind of way. But Chronic Hoosier joins us, and Chronic, you saw this, you retweeted it like an hour ago, and it just simply says things are happening, and it's a looks like an old Dairy Queen commercial of something, but it's only in crimson, it's in crimson and cream colors. And you pointed out that, to your knowledge, Dairy Queen only operates in Indiana versus Maryland and Texas.
Which is wild, because I'm sitting here looking at the Dairy Queen wiki page right now. They're all over the dang globe. And so like, you can get Dairy Queen in Turkey, Taiwan, South Korea, Singapore, Morocco, Oman, all over. But apparently in the U.S., it's limited to the Indiana market as far as the schools that Dairy Queen's considering. But no, that one was really, really cryptic and pretty heady on Trilly's part. But it was actually brought to my attention by, I can't remember who in the group. I'm in a text thread with some fools that many of you would know. And they started losing their mind as I was jumping out of the shower. And lo and behold, 15 minutes later, there's a crystal ball post from a Maryland guy calling for IU. So, obviously, if I've learned anything in the recruiting game, don't count your chickens until the announcement's made, and probably until the letter of intent is signed, or the scholarship agreement, or however they want to commemorate it. Now, there's a lot that can change, but it is certainly a big swing in direction from what most of the prognosticators, I think, were predicting. And, interestingly, this comes on the eve of Dylan Harper's decision. Apparently that's going to drop tomorrow as well. So you love to see the momentum continue on the recruiting trail. You love to see him stacking up some dudes, and who knows where that leads, but it's certainly a sign in the positive direction. And it's, in all honesty, it's just probably a continuation of what's been a very, very good week for Indiana University athletics, the NCAA soccer overtime loss notwithstanding.
Well, Brian is saying that they have Dairy Queens in Texas too. So we'll go with the fact that it is cream and crimson, and well, those are Houston's colors as well, not the cream and crimson part, but they're like red and white, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It seems like Houston has been fading in that recruitment. But and I'm going to say this with too, like I admit that I have largely checked out of the recruiting game over the last decade.
Oh, geez, it's hard not to. My God, it's a pain in the what.
For somebody that went all in on the movement and really, really kind of saw how messed up the whole thing is and how detrimental it can be to the program, to the players, to the fans. I get that it's an industry in and of itself, the subset of college athletics, and I know a lot of people that do a really good job at it. I'm not dismissing it, but it's not just that you're reading tea leaves. You're reading teenage tea leaves, and as a parent of a couple of teenagers, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So appreciate all the folks that do work in that area that continue to pump the news out and produce the content. But as we're increasingly seeing now, and I think that's where you see guys like Trilly kind of moving into this space, is
absolutely
it's less and less about what publication you work for and all this, and more about relationships that you've got. And I think you see a lot of guys now that are kind of disrupting that area simply because they're not on the payroll. They're not they're not subject to click limits or quotas, if you will, and all that other stuff. And they're just pumping out what they hear rather than what they feel like needs to be said. So interesting nonetheless. Certainly one to keep an eye on. You obviously want to get as many dudes as you can. And obviously Mike Woodson is putting up quite the resume when it comes to developing big guys. I'd love to see some wings and some shooters join that fold. But, as we've said before, talent attracts talent, winning attracts more winners. And you love to see it.
Well, just watching Ralik Renew and the quick and I would say dominant turnaround of a guy, Kalel Ware, who we heard didn't have a motor and didn't want to work and yada, yada. The dude's a damn superstar and heading towards all Big Ten status right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's it. He's the
under
guy
Mike.
right now.
I should have said under Mike Woodson, and that is probably exactly some of the things that Dairy Queen is seeing. Trace Jackson Davis before that.
No doubt whatsoever. And I think it's great when you can kind of make a mark in a certain area, and that's kind of your forte. And it certainly would seem that reputation is growing nationally as far as Woody's ability to utilize those guys in a day and age where the game's kind of becoming a little more amorphous. He knows how to play some post players, that's for sure. Now, he's made no bones about the fact he would like to develop the game a little bit further. The problem is he just didn't have the pieces right now. So, the transfer portal is certainly there, and they've done well there. But you love to see a staff that's able to establish the relationships, nurture, develop them, and ultimately cash them in. And I think that's a lot more sustainable at long term than some of the other options available. You're always going to have the grad transfers. The portal's probably going to increasingly become a bigger and bigger thing as time goes on. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to identify the right fits for your program. And I think the benefit you get when you're in on the high school guys is you have a much longer courtship where you get to know more about them as individuals, more about them as, what motivates them, what drives them, people in their orbit, and all those other factors that can contribute to your program's culture. And I think in the compressed timeframes you have to work with in the portal, you leave a lot of that to chance. So it's one of those things where I think the returns can be a lot greater when you can develop the old school way, getting these kids out of high school after you've established those relationships. And that's not to say, look at Khalil Ware. Obviously, we don't know exactly how long that courtship started, but it's proved to be pretty fruitful. Same with Mbako so far. So I'm not slighting one or the other, but there are some advantages to be able to cash in on some of the high school commitments. And it certainly seems like Woody continues to have some pull in those spheres, especially down at Montverde. My goodness, it's one that you just love to see continue to churn for the Hoosiers.
Well, the Montverde products have all been treated extraordinarily well by Indiana. They've all gotten exactly what they signed up for, which is to put themselves in a position to move to the next level. Of course, Jalen Hood-Schifino was not expected to be a one and done, and yet turned out that was the very thing. Not only that, he was a first round draft pick. And so now you've got Malik Renew, who is just slowly moving along in that direction as well. You've got, oh my God, coming next year already, his team, Liam McNeely coming at the wing spot, and he's been in his ear the whole time. Then you just saw Indiana destroy Maryland for the most part the other night, especially on the inside. So it can't be said. The excitement that the football coaching hire has brought is shocking. I've seen a lot of football coaches hired at Indiana, and so have you. And I have yet to remember one that brought this level of excitement or potential excitement to a fan base that is used to getting kicked in right in the onions every time. It's the Charlie Brown thing with Lucy pulling the ball out. That's what Indiana football has been like for most fans. But yet, if you give them hope, and this might be the most hope they've had, and it's not because it's a guy named Jerry DiNardo or, Cam Cameron, which were big name hires. This is not a big name hire. Half the fans had no idea who Kurt Signetti was, but the excitement is it's been really surprising.
No, I think we are slowly watching an evolution of Indiana football in the way the administration, the way the university leadership treats it. I was a little shocked, in a good way, I guess, when they hired Kevin Wilson. That was one of those hot names on the board, and Indiana didn't.
And it was a good hire on the paper.
No, and I'll say it, until I die, no different than Kelvin Sampson was a phenomenal basketball coach. Is just the right guy at the wrong place. There's certain
at the wrong time.
There are certain fits that it just aren't going to work. And I appreciate the fact that you're targeting the best coach. Now, at the end of the day, culture, that fit's got to work as well. But that was a move that I didn't necessarily expect Indiana to take.
Yeah, neither did I. But
are you kidding?
No, you're back. You're good.
Oh, no. I was going to say my cell network. I swear to God, Jim. Nevertheless, though, I think the concern this go around, this hire was there were a lot of names that weren't super sexy in my estimation. You had some retreads in Paul Christ, some safe bets, some safe picks, but really kind of more status quo picks. So to go out and get somebody that was proven, first and foremost, somebody that has a great record as far as, just a proven winner at every stop he's made, the guy that's been able to grow programs. And that's the thing, is Indiana didn't need just somebody that can just put it on cruise and keep where it's at. Because quite frankly, if you wanted to stay where you're at, you wouldn't have made the firing to begin with. You wouldn't have moved on from Tom Allen. But somebody that has proven that they can elevate a program, outkick its coverage, if you will. It just.
Yeah, it exactly was never what Indiana fans ended up hoping that it would be. But this one very much might be that and more, as the excitement level is up. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm going to have Tyler Harris on here this week, I believe, and we'll talk to him about what that has done on the football side of things. There are matching donors that are looking to get behind the football program. And you have to have that, because you cannot be a basketball school. You can be a basketball school that's pretty good in football or decent in football, but you cannot be just a basketball school. It simply won't work. As far as from a financial standpoint, I know people don't understand that, but football is where the money is now. It's where the networks make their money, which in turn the schools make their money. So you have to supply a good football program, and that's the money that Indiana misses out on every Saturday afternoon when you look at Memorial Stadium and it's 3/4 empty. There's seats that aren't being paid for, concessions that aren't being bought, merchandise that's not being bought, and the experience of the advertising that brings to the school. You can't have the CBS drone flying over the stadium for a game that's 3/4 empty. That's a horrible advertisement for Indiana. So But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to see an increase in everything. It's going to be interesting to see what the increase in season tickets are. I think that's going to go up. Corporate donors. One of the things I asked Scott Dolson about the other day when we had that impromptu meeting was, how far is Indiana from building a stadium? Building a new press box with suites that go from end to end. And basically he said, it's just a process. And I get that. It takes a lot of money to do all that stuff, even though they're years behind. That's stuff that they have to do, but that's not something I expect to happen for a couple of years. And so, but they'll be doing other things along the way to make the experience that much better and for fans. But there's nothing that makes the product better than on the field. Winning cures all. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it 1,000 more. Winning cures everything. If you win, the people will be there. If you show a penchant for winning games or for being in games, challenging to win games against the big time teams, the fans will be there. They'll stay after halftime. They'll come back after halftime. And so that's something that Indiana is going to have to change. Everything. That goes right down to their fans and their concept of supporting the football program. They're going to need to do all of that and more to grow that program. And Indiana has to grow football. They have to be better in football than they have been, period. They have to be a competitor, not dog meat, because you've got 4 teams coming in Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC that are only going to add to the drama. There's not a drop-off there. You don't have another Indiana in those schools. And so you look over in the West, former West Division. Purdue is trying. They've built the facilities. They've got a new coach, so they had a so-so year. But they expect to be better next year. Illinois, they took a hit. I think that had a lot to do with losing Ryan Walters to Purdue as their coach, but they're going to have to come back. Nebraska, man, they were so close this year in Matt Rule's first year of reaching a bowl game. But that Western, I guess you can't call it the Western Division anymore, but those schools have to get better. But we've also seen we talked about it yesterday. I don't want to call it a watering down, but a leveling of the playing field where teams are getting just, it's getting, the equality is spreading out further and further. You've got the starting quarterback for Ohio State in the portal. That's unheard of. And I know the portal's not that old, but it's a very quick time. That's shocking. That's something I never expected to see. Hey, we've got to take a break. Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times will join us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Time to go, Michael.
That's right.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I cannot complain. Just been talking about Indiana's new football coach, the new and more. I know you haven't been around here as much, but the support is blowing my mind. Some of the things that I put out on social media, bam, I'm like, man, I reposted a story yesterday and it would have never gotten jack, a couple likes here and there, and it was off the wall. And I'm like, well, that's more than unusual. So The people are buying into it, but they're starved. They're starved for football success. Where did you come from before here?
Covered the Bengals, and then before that,
So
was
you were
Virginia
used to cover. So you were used to covering football.
Virginia Tech, yeah.
Va-Tech. Ooh, they were probably good when you were there, huh?
They were okay. They kind of fell off when I got there.
All right, guys, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Appreciate everybody being with us. Joined now by Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times. Mike, one of the things that we were talking about is there was a cryptic tweet sent out by one Trilly Donovan, a well-known Twitter character, I guess you'd say, that was in reference to Derek Queen, and a lot of people jumped off on that. I just saw Rob Cassidy send something out that he would not expect anything to happen until a certain day, but I couldn't get it pulled up quick enough to see what he was saying. It says, whatever the case with this committed Derek Queen, I wouldn't expect anything this week. Might still be a bit in anything official. So I guess he's saying he doesn't expect it to happen in the next week or so, it seems like.
Yeah, I tend to not read the tea leaves on social media like that. I mean, anything could change. And his recruitment's kind of had a lot of twists and turns, so probably don't believe anything until it's official.
Absolutely, because it always does change. It seems like things can change as well. Nothing's done until it's done, and signed on the dotted line. To be honest with you, but he was actually expected to sign in the early period and didn't do that. So a commitment now seems, I don't know, a little unexpected, to be honest with you. I figured since he didn't do it in the early period that he would just go ahead and wait.
Yeah, you don't necessarily know what the holdup is. I mean, obviously we wanted more time. I think there were some reports about, him cutting his list, and he's refuted it. I mean, he's kind of, there's been a lot of misreporting around his situation as well. So it's hard to kind of get a read on what direction he's kind of feeling.
Yeah, we'll see. Otherwise, Indiana football, of course, Kurt Cignetti, the new hire there, and the excitement level for Indiana football is there right now. Anything you send out regarding football, people are paying attention to, which, first of all, is unbelievable in itself. But for that to be in the middle of basketball season is even more crazy. Indiana fans have, pardon, but have not generally given a crap about Indiana football, especially during basketball season. But that is not the case right now. They are buying into the Kurt Cignetti hype, which Indiana fans just want to see. They just want to be a part of college football, and they haven't been, basically. When you win 2 and 3 games a season, you're not a part of college football, really. You're an outsider.
Yeah, well, and I think the difference between Kurt and Tom Allen obviously is very stark. I mean, I was joking with somebody the other day. I asked him, was Tom's introduction at the basketball game similar? And they laughed. Obviously, Kurt had a very much different message than the LEO that Tom, promoted when he stepped to midcourt. I think Indiana fans wanted that swagger. They wanted somebody with a little fire like that, and it's just different. So it's the start of a obviously new era, and I think fans are kind of enjoying what they've seen with a bit of a bravado from Kurt Signetti.
Yeah, and there's no doubt he has bravado, confidence, a little cockiness. I think that in the press conference, I've told people that there were a couple of questions that he answered a little brusquely, but I think that is mostly him setting a tone that this level is not too big for him just because he hasn't been here. And I don't think that, because one of the things that when looking at his resume a couple of days before his hire that I started saying, you know what, I think this is the guy, is he started to remind me of Kalen DeBoer in a sense, that he won everywhere he went, although Kalen did it at a little younger age. But this guy has won wherever he's gone. And I think that you can carry that over to a degree, but there are things that at this level that will matter that he has not dealt with. And it's not that he hasn't dealt with NIL. He has not dealt with NIL to the level of going up against Michigan and Ohio State and Wisconsin and the likes of that.
Yeah, but I also think some of that, I thought his was interesting that it's pretty straightforward, in terms of, you know what you have and you know how you kind of spread it out. It's based on talent and it's based on things like that. So, I don't know necessarily how difficult that's going to be for him. I think he'll have a pretty good handle on it. Obviously, I think the kind of storyline right now, that Tom kind of hinted at when he kind of put out his message about, Indiana need to embrace, the kind of current landscape. I think some of that's overblown. They're not going to get in a spending sort of match with Michigan or Ohio State. That tier is kind of separate. But I mean, in terms of the teams they're competing with, the Purdue's, Illinois, Northwestern, teams like that, I think Indiana's got a pretty good, level of NIL support. And obviously you've seen kind of in recent days that, they've really kind of made a commitment to try to move that forward. But, I don't think they're that far behind the pack in terms of the teams that they're competing with. I think they're in a pretty good spot.
I agree with you. And you can look at this year's team. They were they were some decisions away, some plays away from being a bowl team, which is crazy to say. Part of that is because the Big Ten was really bad and really down across the league. But Indiana, but that's also the difference that Kurt Signetti pointed out in one of his comments, that Indiana lost, I think ended up being 5 one-score games last season, and they led the nation in one-score game wins with 6. Well, that makes a huge difference. That scares you a little bit that you're in that many close games, but you're able to win those games. That is a winning culture, a winning attitude. That is where you have to not make mistakes. And that is an area where Indiana has just faltered.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw Tom Allen really struggled with end of half situations, and end of game situations, and those sort of really swung a lot of those games. I mean, you saw it. You could kind of point to whether it's Penn State not going for an offensive touchdown at the one point, not being aggressive at others. You had 10-point leads in your last 3 games that you kind of gave up. I mean, you could kind of see where things went wrong. And Kurt Signetti talked about the difference, and I think he feels like based on his track record, he has a good handle on how to win some of those games. And Indiana, like you said, very fine line between being 6-6 and 3-9.
Absolutely. And those are the kinds of differences that changes the entire season for teams, which will change your recruiting, which will change. Those are changes that just continue to carry over. Speaking of recruiting, whether it's coaches or players, we've seen a lot of that coming in. Signetti is going to be bringing in a significant number of his own staff members already, the DCs and the DC and OC, which has been doing a great job amongst other coaches that already have Indiana ties. So that should bode them well in recruiting. And that's something that Indiana, with Tom Allen, they were able to, at least for a while, really hit that Florida market. I don't know that the recruiting stays the same. Signetti is his more ties along the I don't know what you call the mid-Atlantic area, I guess you would say. But he's also has guys that have connections to right here in Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year's, obviously you kind of throw out everything for this year because, I mean, you're scrambling to kind of put things together. I mean, their roster right now, I had it down to, if all the seniors leave, they're at right now with all the people that enter the transfer portal, like 46 projected scholarships right now. So you are going to need a lot of talent and you're going to need a lot of players. And I mean, a lot of that's going to be from the transfer portal, and you're going to be taking guys and you're going to be focused on things that, I don't think you're necessarily be your blueprint going forward. Right now, they just need, they need to replenish this roster because, things are pretty dicey in terms of, they lost a lot of guys to the portal. I mean, some could come back still. We haven't heard anything. There hasn't been a player that has kind of recommitted. So, that'll be kind of his, he said it. It's the top priority. It's what will keep him busy the next, 4 to 8 weeks here as we have early signing period and regular signing day to try to, land some guys that can help them, win. You've seen a lot of James Madison commits kind of change their mind and open up their recruitment. So you figure some of those are going to come here just based on their familiarity with the staff. But it's going to take a lot. I mean, the good thing is that the 25 scholarship cap doesn't exist anymore. So they don't have that counter to sort of limit them because they're going to need probably, to sign 30 to 40 players.
And what he means by that, there used to be a rule that allowed you only to bring in so many new players per season. I remember it was a couple of years ago, Kansas had to either they got a waiver or requested a waiver because their entire team was basically gone. But in this new age of the transfer portal, that no longer exists, thank goodness. But it's going to be an entirely different team next year, and looking forward to seeing what that product is going to be like. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be one that makes less mistakes, they're not going to be perfect. But I think that's something that Coach Signetti really harps on. He talked about not allowing for what was the word? Daggone it. I'm drawing a mind blank right now. But I can't remember what I was trying to say, but not to fall into where you just do things casually. Complacency. Yes. Thank you very much.
No worries.
His big, but that's a big thing. I think Indiana, that happened too much. They would relax too often at the bad times. And so I don't think you're going to see that. And I think you're going to see guys that are wanting to play to win. Not that Indiana's players didn't want to win, but there's a difference between wanting to win and playing to win. And I think that's going to be a huge difference.
Well, and some people, I think that it's easy to draw comparisons to when he took over at Elon. I mean, obviously it's a lower level, but I mean, that was a historically, tough place to win, kind of in the midst of all these other bigger schools in the Carolinas. And he did a really good job there. I think it was a 6-win turnaround right off the bat. Took him to the postseason in both of his years. They had, I think, 8-game win streak after losing their first game in his first season. So he knows how to do it. I mean, he's talked a lot about the blueprint that he follows. Obviously, learned a lot of that from Nick Saban when he was a recruiting coordinator. An offensive assistant there for 3 seasons. So, he's got a good foundation for trying to build a program.
And the fact that he did coach under some solid coaches is also he got a positive vote of confidence from Nick Saban, I think, earlier in the week. So it is going to be an exciting season for Indiana football, and we'll see how that translates into fans not leaving at halftime, being there for end of games. Because I said, it's really a bad look when you've got that CBS drone flying over the stadium for that stadium shot, and there's only a third of the stadium filled. That's a bad look. That's not a good commercial for Indiana. So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to obviously, he talks about filling, he said he doesn't see any reason why there's not, why they can't fill the stadium. I mean, they've talked about, obviously making some upgrades to it because, I mean, it's pretty antiquated in terms of where they are in the Big Ten. But that'll be a challenge. I mean, that'll be, I think he's going to have to, prove some things to be able to do that. But we'll see kind of, at the start of the season, how much that excitement kind of that you've mentioned and talked about kind of carries over.
I asked Scott Dolson about, how far away is Indiana from tearing the press box down that's from the 1800s and replacing it with one that has suites. We call them all press boxes, but that's the least that they're used for. They're mainly used for suites, and that is something Indiana is so far behind in and needs. And would actually have been great to have now because I think it would be an easier way to roll into football support, but that's a few years away. We'll see how everything goes from that. Indiana basketball on the hardwood tonight up in Ann Arbor, Mike, with a game that they have a good shot to win, but this is not an easy game. Michigan has been playing better than expected, although they have lost 3 or 4 straight, as was pointed out by Mike DeCourcy with me earlier today. So Indiana stands a good shot of going into Michigan and stealing a win in the Big Ten and going 2-0 early, which would be an incredible start to their conference season.
Well, and yeah, you look at this stretch. I mean, this is as tired this is as hard of a stretch as you'll have in college basketball. On the road at Michigan, neutral site against Auburn, and then obviously Kansas. I mean, so you're talking about getting a win at the start of that stretch, and then I think you could feel kind of good about whatever happens kind of the rest of the way there, because you won your first 2 conference games, and they played really well the other night against Maryland. I thought looked locked in, better than they have all season. So we'll kind of see if they can carry that over. I mean, I think one thing you've seen this year from them, they've been up and down. I think part of that's because they have some youth, going on the road too. We'll see if Xavier Johnson's able to come back in the lineup. I think he'd be an important presence in the road game, in a road game like that, in an environment like that. So, been up and down so far. See if they can kind of put 2 in a row. Obviously they've won, they're 7-1, but in terms of playing a good brand of basketball, I think they've yet to kind of do that in consecutive games.
Speaking of which, not playing with Xavier Johnson changes the game for Indiana. It is I don't want to call it a slower game, but Gabe Cupps is not the same guy that Xavier is yet, a freshman, and but they have been managing things from a guard's perspective. Gabe Cupps has not given them a whole lot, but he hasn't hurt them either. He's allowed just being a facilitator. Trey Galloway has kind of picked things up a little bit in the absence of Xavier, but Mackenzie Mbako, his game has risen, and that is huge for Indiana. And if he can just get his outside shooting going, I think that would be a gigantic lift to Indiana, because you've already got Kel'el Ware, who you're not going to get 3 or 4 threes a game from. But, man, 1 or 2 from him is gigantic, which Indiana is getting that. If they can start getting 2 or 3 from Mackenzie Mbako, 1 from somebody else, those are game changers, because Indiana plays very good defense and they play very well in the paint.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned Gabe Cupps, I mean, he's obviously brought a lot defensively, I think, and just the lack of mistakes he's made as a true freshman. I think that's what you like, and kind of the poise. You're not getting a ton of offense, but I think what you're getting from him is a good presence, and that's why I think Mike Woodson's trusted him a lot. And I think in terms of McKenzie, you've kind of seen when he's gotten in a feel for the offense early. That's bode well for him. I think he needs that right now. He needs to kind of play with that confidence, and it's helped when he's made a couple baskets early. You've kind of seen him kind of string a couple good games together.
Well, tonight, Indiana taking on the Michigan Wolverines in Ann Arbor. They are one of whoops, I'm on the wrong day. Today's Tuesday. They are one of 3 Big Ten games tonight. Illinois is hosting FAU. How about that? Dusty May. Damn it. I wish these games hadn't been on the same day. I'd love to have gone and seen that. With number 23, Wisconsin goes to Michigan State. Wisconsin, one of only 3 Big Ten teams that are ranked now. Illinois at 20, and then you've got Purdue, who just fell down to 3. But it's going to be an exciting Big Ten season. Mike, I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Make sure you're giving Mike a follow at the Bloomington Herald-Times. Be a subscriber, and make sure you give Mike a follow on Twitter. Mike, I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. That's going to wrap it up. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network, Chronic Hoosier as well, of course. And it has been a fun day as always. Thanks to RC for keeping us between the white lines. John is back tomorrow. RC back on Thursday. We're flip-flopping a little this week, but we've got it all covered for you. Tonight's game for Indiana, of course, is a 9:00 game. Not sure about the post game right now. I'm going to say no on that because it's just too late to do that. And we'll talk about it on the show tomorrow. But thank you guys so much for being with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio each and every day. Can't thank you enough. For those of you listening on radio, if you're following us on YouTube, we'd really appreciate giving us a follow and a like, and just hit that notifications toggle. Big thanks again to everybody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.